And I'm delighted to say that my very special guest for the first hour of the show tonight, Phil Harding, is here. Good evening, Phil.
Evening, Kieran.
I couldn't resist a bit of Dead or Alive to start the show off with. So you spin me round like a record. 1984 was that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because, as we talked about on your last visit here, you were, I'm getting this right, you're an engineer for Stock Aitken Waterman.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I was their chief engineer at the PWL Studios. The Dead or Alive record was actually made at the Marquee Studios before we moved.
Right.
We had about a year working there. I was one of the house engineers there and couldn't resist leaving to be the main engineer for Stock Aitken Waterman at their studios.
Right.
And that whole sort of 80s decade from 84, I was there till 92, and we were just saying earlier, that Dead or Alive record to me still stands up all this time later.
Yeah.
Not all the records do, but that one does.
Definitely. It was Stock Aitken Waterman's first #1 record.
Yes.
And it still sounds great today.
Thank you. And it was at the point of that going to #1 that Waterman and the other lads said, okay, it's signed to CBS Records, which is now Sony. We know the money's going to come through. We're not going to get ripped off. Time to invest in our own studio rather than being in someone else's. And that was a big step. It was a big step for me as well, because I had to break my contract at the Marquee Studios. And I often say when I'm talking to students that if you've had a good career or you're going through your career, I've been lucky to have a long career in the music industry, you'll have certain moments when you need to really look inside yourself. I've always gone with gut feelings of, is this the right thing to do? And that was one of those, apart from, the first time I got the job at the Marquee as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
But I'd been there 12 years.
Yeah, so you've done your time and paid your dues, as they say.
I was employed, and it was, am I going to break my contract and break the safety of being employed to go to work for Pete Waterman on what turned out immediately to be freelance, self-employed basis?
Yeah.
And it was like a step back to take a step forward. So for a while I was earning less, but hey, look at history. It was a great decision. It was the right decision.
What an amazing decision to make. You imagine that at the time. Is it worth doing? Actually, all this years later.
I think that's what I'm talking about, the gut feeling. My gut was saying, definitely these guys, this team, going somewhere. So
what would you say? I mean, listening to tracks like that, what to you would make a good pop record? What is it about that makes it still stand up, however many years later it is?
Yeah, apart from timing, a lot of people talk about timing in music, especially in pop music. Is it the right time for this? And a lot of elements tend to come together. A lot of us call it the links in the chain. All the links in the chain have got to be right if there's anything not right. And although it's been well reported there were some arguments and some aggression during those sessions, which there were.
Dead or Alive sessions were famously acrimonious.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I loved Pete, the singer.
Pete Burns,
Pete Burns, no longer with us, unfortunately. But, he could be a very sharp character and difficult. But once you got to know him, he was, even if he was shouting at you, you were almost laughing, because he had a great sense of humour as well.
Okay.
So there's the elements of the people, the label, the song. That was one of 4 song demos that they brought in for that particular session, and it really stood out. Yeah. And then, as we were talking earlier, the combination of instruments that make the sound of the record. And people often ask me about this today, and some people get it right, some people get it wrong. But it is very Fairlight based, which was
Fairlight synthesizer that was everywhere in the 80s.
Yeah, an early sampler that used to cost a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
That makes up a lot of the drums, together with the Lindrum. That was a kind of a combination.
Electronic drums.
And the bass is mainly the Fairlight. A lot of those other high-end synthesizers that we hear are something called the PPG Wave, which never really took off. A lot of people think it's the Yamaha DX7, which was very famous, but it was the PPG Wave and a little bit of Roland.
So it's all down to the various different bits all coming together and making a genius record.
Exactly.
Yeah. Talking of genius records, segueing nicely to the lovely new EP from 24 Club.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
We'll be talking about some of the 24 Club shenanigans tonight as well, and also playing some tracks from the new EP. What's the new EP called? It's called
Message from the Universe.
From the Universe. This is reading it here. So we'll play some tracks from that. This is one we've been playing actually for the last few weeks on the show. This is great from 24 Club. This is Nothing to Lose.
For the other side, we're still
Slightly inevitably, when we are in the studio with a studio engineer, we end up talking about speakers for 10 minutes during the ignoring the track, just talking about technology all the time. Phil Harding is my very special guest for the first hour of the show tonight from 24 Club, and as you've just heard, former member of the PWL Stock Aitken Waterman stable as well. So there's Nothing to Lose from 24 Club, the Message from the Universe EP. When's that available? Is it out now?
It's out now, yes.
It's actually available?
Yeah, it's been on Spotify since start of the month and all the usual platforms.
Yep.
And I believe you've got our Bandcamp
as well. I was going to say, yeah, 24club.bandcamp.com is the best place to go.
Yeah, and there's a limited CDs that you can buy from that.
Right.
Site. Yeah.
Perfect. So, we'll try and mention that a few times during the hour. Could plug it a lot. But, yeah, because we're talking about what makes a great record just now. And listening to that record, that's the thing I love about 24 Club stuff. With obviously you're a major contributor to the production side of it and all that.
Yeah.
It's one of those bands that the records you make, there's nothing on the record that shouldn't be there, or it sounds like that to the listener. It's like, this is so beautifully produced.
That's what we aim for.
Yeah, it's not like an old bit of feedback or something, let's leave that in, or, a missed drum beat or something,
No, we're pretty fussy with how it ends up and the mixing.
Yeah.
And, I've heard some great quotes. There's a lovely guy called Andrew Sheps, who's an American engineer, producer, worked with Adele and all sorts of people, based in the UK now. And someone asked him at a conference, when do you know a mix is finished? Because it's so difficult these days.
Yeah.
Different people involved. Just got to power up your computer and everything's there how you left it. So you end up with lots of mixes progressing through to mix 5, mix 6, whatever.
Back in the old days, you would have been limited by the number of tracks you had on the
and the amount of tape and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But as Andrew Shepp said, his answer to the question was, when nothing bothers me.
Right.
When he can listen through, like you're saying, and there's no feedback and no glitches or glitches or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the point where he feels he's happy with the mix. So,
fantastic.
And that's a good quote. Yeah.
Superb. We're going to play some more tracks from the 24 Club EP. Phil Harding is my very special guest, and Phil, talking about what's the trick to being a good studio engineer.
This is something that I tell students these days. Obviously, you've got to have the technology down, and that's expected of engineers and producers, etc., etc. And that's really only kind of 20 or 30% of it these days.
Right.
Especially as a producer, but even as an engineer, you've got to have some character and some, shall we say, some panache about you, because in a studio session, it is a performance. But both for the engineer and obviously for the artist, possibly even more so live.
Yeah.
These days, I do think that the live sound engineer can make or break a concert,
right?
Especially if it's quite a big concert and there's a lot of fans there that know the music and know the sound of the artist. And you know, I've been to a few concerts where one concert, same artist, same set, and is fantastic, and you go somewhere else and a different sound engineer, and they just haven't got it right.
I know exactly what you mean. I quite often find myself, if we go and see a gig somewhere and you're near the mixing desk, I often find myself going up to the engineer going, well done, that was mixed, I really enjoyed the mix. Because it does make the difference, doesn't it? If you can hear the bass properly and all that sort of stuff.
Huge difference. You know, you've really got to focus in on what's important, and I saw, you know, one of our top UK folk artists, Kate Rusby, just a couple of weeks ago at the Lavenham Church in Suffolk, and the vocal sound was perfect.
Right.
I mean, beyond perfect.
Yeah.
And we're all there to hear Kate's voice. It's such a unique folk voice. You know, she had 5 musicians around her. Yeah. You could easily have overloaded it with the drums and the bottom end.
Yeah.
But and I had to go up to the sound engineer at the interval and say, well done, great job.
Because what is the course? What's the course that you run then? You have students who learn about engineering from you. What tell us briefly about that.
I don't really run a specific course myself.
Right.
I go around to universities and do guest lectures.
Okay.
But I'm co-chair of an education company, which is an industry accreditation body called JAMES, Joint Audio Media Education Support.
Right.
And our specialism is to industry accredit music production and technology courses. So there's about 25, maybe a few more around the country that we accredit. So, for instance, I was on a visit to the University of Derby recently. They've been a real front runner in ambisonic sound, immersive sound, Dolby Atmos. These are where the sound engineering future is going.
All the surround sound stuff.
And we run a summer school, which obviously has not been on, during the pandemic, but we're back at Leeds Beckett in their new campus, fantastic new studios, and we're running a summer school there for the top graduates from most of the accredited courses that we look at, and they get to spend a week with Ken Scott.
Right.
Beatles engineer, David Bowie producer.
I'm thinking, I know the name Ken Scott. Where do I know Ken Scott from? Okay.
Yeah, we see him a lot on TV. And what a fantastic thing for a graduating student to kind of, they've done their 3 years of the undergraduate course and they get to spend a whole week with Ken Scott running a session in the studio there.
Not bad to be taught by a member of the PWL Hit Factory as well. Let's not forget.
I've done a few of them myself. Yes. So so I don't run a specific course. I did used to work at the West Suffolk College in Bury St Edmunds for some time, but but I go out and talk to students, and it's all about passing on your experience and your knowledge. And there's a lot of people get to my stage in the industry that are quite happy to do that, and it is appreciated. But we do try to encourage sort of recent graduates who are in the industry to go back in as well. Right. A lot of the youngsters find it easier to relate to someone younger than myself. A lot of us are still stuck in our kind of analog desk mode and world, and really, fantastic records like the things you're playing tonight have probably been made at home on a laptop and a few microphones.
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
And that's where the industry's gone. So it's quite incredible. But I would encourage youngsters out there listening that the thing is that you might think you know the technology, even if you're an artist yourself and you've got your laptop and you're recording. But the thing about going to a college and a university is the peers that you're going to meet, and often these are people that you wouldn't have collaborated, you wouldn't have met them if you hadn't made the effort to sign up to a course at a university or a college. And we often see that, because group collaboration, certainly in my world, in the pop world, absolutely vital. All the records I've been involved in over the years have always been a group collaboration of people, and that includes the production and the engineering side, obviously, as well as the artist. But in my view, I mean, you can look at Stock Aitken Waterman. There were 3 people there. And as I've gone through my own academic journey in recent years, and I've had time to reflect on these things, I call it a service model for creativity through to commerciality in pop music. And the PWL model, although I didn't realise it at the time, I don't think any of us realised it at the time, fits into my model perfectly, where you've got a Pete Waterman who's the team leader. You know, he was our captain and we were all on the ship with him. You know, Stock and Aitken, the vice captains, as it were, and then a whole crew around that, you know, making up, and everyone there would I think agree with me that it's all those component parts go to make up that fantastic run of hit records that we had. And you take one of those away. I mean, Matt Aitken left at an early time in the early 90s, and you know, things weren't flowing as well. There was still some hit records, but
Let's get back to 24 Club. Something else from the Message from the Universe EP. There's a track called Films. Tell us quickly about Films.
Yeah, so Films and the first track you played have come from my... I don't like to talk too much about the pandemic, as a lot of people do in there. You know, that didn't inspire us to necessarily make the records, but it inspired me to get up into my loft of tapes and cassettes and DATs. And I've been archiving a lot of that in you know, into the computer, and both Films and the first track we heard, Nothing to Lose, have come from those early archiving sessions back in 2019, in fact, where a lot of what you'll hear on this track and what you heard on that first track were actually recorded in New York in 1980.
Oh, right.
And we had a TAC 4 track in a little room in a New York apartment, and sometimes we'd go into a rehearsal room and record something. And what we've done is we've managed to claw, as it were, parts from those original 4 tracks and then add onto them in this recent time, which gets us to where we are now. So, for instance, that first track you played, Nothing to Lose, that first guitar you hear and the main guitar that comes in and my bass, that's my role in the band.
Yeah, you're the bass player, let's not forget. That's right.
Are from a rehearsal session at SIR rehearsal rooms, you know, a big rehearsal room in an equipment supplier in New York, and we've retained those original performances, managed to get in time with that because we were playing to a drum machine, so that wasn't too tough to do, and it was just an instrumental, and you've heard everything that LA Dave has done onto the track since then.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about LA Dave in a second. Okay. Let's have a listen to Film. This is Films, 24 Club. taken from the new EP Message from the Universe, available through 24club.bandcamp.com. There's 24 Club. Films, in brackets, Another Day. And Phil Harding, the bass player, and were you the engineer on this? Is it fair to say?
Yeah, engineer and co-producer. Yeah.
He's here, as you can tell. Who are the other guys in the band? Because I remember last time you were all scattered all over the place.
Yes, well, we still are. So the singer that you're listening to, that's Dave Dowell. He's based in Los Angeles, and he plays a lot of the guitars and synthesizers and other bits and pieces that you hear on there. He's really the core of the creativity of the band.
Right.
Lyricist and vocalist. And then his guitars are supplemented by Mick Hansen in Brooklyn. So it's Brooklyn Mick and LA Dave.
That's right. I remember Brooklyn Mick and LA Dave from last time. That's right. Yes.
And there's me based in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk.
Yeah.
So and I had some backing vocals on and the bass. Sometimes the bass is the original. That's a new one. And on the last EP, we were overjoyed to be joined by Affy on drums.
Yeah, it was a female drummer you had, wasn't it?
Female drummer.
Right.
And she's based in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk.
Okay.
But since doing that first EP 4 years ago, she's been out touring the world with the Pet Shop Boys.
Ah, okay.
on electronic drums. So absolutely fantastic. Yeah. But we didn't get around to using her this time. So those drums you're hearing are me looking at sites like Loop Masters and things like that, where you can get live drum loops,
downloading loops and stuff.
You pay for it, and it comes down at 4 bars at a time, certain tempo. So I've spent a lot of time sifting through, is that going to fit with the song, and then you get it to your tempo, and then you play to that. But it's quite good fun. I was saying to someone the other day that one of my least favourite session drummers. And only because, and I won't actually name him
without insulting anybody.
He used to come in the 80s with it might have started off with 4 rototoms.
Right.
I don't know if you.
Yeah, the sort of
drummers
drums, those ones. Yeah.
Where it ended up being 8.
Right.
And he's come in to play on a 3-minute radio pop session. And as an engineer, oh God,
you get a massive drum fill at the beginning.
And all this
drums at the beginning.
All a bit complicated for my taste. But on the loop samples that he's done, someone in the studio recording it has obviously said, come on, let's
calm down a bit.
Go with the metronome, obviously, and just stick to that for 4 bars and stick to that for 4 bars. So I've ended up with my least favourite 80s session drummer on there, who's, don't get me wrong, lovely guy, but just a little overcomplicated.
But you've got him just the way you want him.
Yes.
Basically, there you go.
Got control of him.
Fantastic. Phil Harding has been my very special guest for the first hour of the show tonight. Absolute pleasure, Phil, to get you back in the studio.
It's been a pleasure to be here, Kieran. Thank you.
We can't let you go though without talking about this wonderful book that you have under your arm here.
Yes. Since I was last on, having completed my PhD at Leeds Beckett University, which the subject, this will give listeners a laugh, I think.
Go on.
The subject title of my PhD was Stay Another Day, a reflective and oral history of the technology and culture of the manufactured pop and boy bands in the 1990s.
Catchy-ish. Could do with some work.
Imagine being allowed to do that as a PhD in a university. So the book has got a slightly simpler title: Pop Music Production, Manufactured Pop and Boy Bands of the 1990s.
Right.
So that's published by Routledge, and that's basically come out of my PhD. Was published in 2019.
Yep.
Or was it 2020? And it's like my first book, which was about my PWL days. That was called PWL from the Factory Floor. This book is part academic, part memoir of the 90s. I'm talking about E17 and all the boy bands I've worked with, Boyzone and so on, and part how-to. So what I give here as a reference for students and people coming into music production, a lot of the formula and for want of a better word, tactics that Ian Curnow and I used working with those boy bands,
right.
Developing into what I described earlier, this service model for creativity and commerce. And I've applied it to the PWL in the book, the PWL example, the example we use for the boy bands, and how I've used the model going forward since then.
Right.
And so therefore I've brought it up to date with the latest technology as well.
Yeah.
So
and this is available online, presumably, for people to purchase?
Yes, you'll find it anywhere pretty much, you know, at Routledge, at Amazon, but in particular on my own website, philhardymusic.com.
Perfect.
On my web shop, that book and the earlier PWL book are both available, and I will sign them.
Brilliant. There you go. Why would you not want a signed copy of that from PWL legend Phil Harding? 24 Club. Let's get back to 24 Club very quickly then. The new EP is out now and available to download through 24club.bandcamp.com. Message from the Universe is the name of the EP.
Yeah.
Have you guys got any plans for live work or anything? Because you've got so many tracks now.
Yeah, it's impossible. I mean, who knows? Maybe it will happen one day,
We'd
Kieran.
love to come and see you live up at the 100 Club or somewhere. It'd be amazing.
If we ever do, I will certainly let you know.
We'd love to be there, definitely.
You know, potentially 2 more tracks, and we've got an album as well. But,
yeah, quite.
But, you know, we've been 4 years getting these 4 tracks together.
Yeah.
But the next one you're going to play is possibly my favourite on the EP, where we've, again, I've archived something because we went under some other names. If people really want to delve into our history, we used to be called the Famous Rays,
right?
And we had an album out called End in Beginning, and that was something that we self-released back. It was recorded again in around 1980, but that album came out in 1990.
Right,
it can be found.
Yeah.
And there was a track on there called Black Dress. And that started off very similar to how Change starts off. But there are no drums, there's no groove, it's just kind of guitar and vocal. And as you'll hear, when it goes into the kind of Police type rock reggae, I always imagined in my head, and here we are having the chance to do it, you know, a big kind of reggae rock drum beat coming in.
Okay.
So here we are, you know, 40 years later, and I've fulfilled that vision that I had in my mind.
Yes, fantastic. Hey, Phil, it's been so fantastic to have you in the studio. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you, Kieran. Fantastic to be here.
Let's round off with it. This is taken from the new 24 Club EP, Message from the Universe. This is 24 Club and Change. absolute pleasure, as always, to have Phil Harding in the studio with us. And don't forget, I will be getting the show blog sorted out for you as soon as I possibly can, straight after the programme tonight, so you can listen back to this interview and the whole show, in fact. It will be online later on at radiowoking.co.uk and through our Facebook page, Crossing the Tracks Radio Woking, and through Twitter as well, at Crossing the Tracks. Hi to P-Mad, JJ Kane and John Palmer, who've all been on as well, by the way. Hi, guys. Cheers. Enjoying the Phil Harding interview, and we'll definitely keep in touch with Phil and bring you loads more 24 Club stuff on the show. The new EP, Message from the Universe, is now available, and you get it through bandcamp.com, 24club.bandcamp.com.